So just a quick look at today's agenda. I'll briefly cover some introductions and some background on our work here at Marquee 360 before passing it over to Allison, who will review Power Platform equivalents to Smartsheet solutions. And then we'll demo our Marquee 360 Power Platform model-driven app, PPM 360, which is an example of an enterprise project management solution that pulls together all the different pieces of the project management lifecycle, like task management, team collaboration, resource management, and reporting. Lastly, we will review our recommended approach to a migration from Smartsheets, and there will be some time at the end for Q&A, but feel free to raise a hand or drop a question in the chat throughout. I will also be sending this recording out at the end. Just to quickly introduce ourselves, I'm Charlene Kalirgos, an account executive here supporting our customers throughout their work management journey. And I also have on the call with me Allison Dewey, one of our customer success managers, who'll be leading the technical portion of today's session. Do you want to say hi real quick, Allison?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Okay. So just a little bit of background on Marquee 360 for anyone who is new or unfamiliar to us. We're a Microsoft Gold partner for work management and M365 cloud solutions. And what that means is that we've been recognized by Microsoft as a trusted partner to work side by side with their team and supporting their customers throughout their Microsoft investment. We focus our work on the M365 applications like Planner and Teams, as well as Power Platform with tools like Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. Our founders are actually previous Microsoft employees and have been in the work management space for over 20 years. So they have seen many iterations of Microsoft's project management tools, everything from Project Server to Project Online, and more recently, Microsoft Planner and Power Platform, where a lot of the shift is happening to. At a high level, these are the three main areas we focus on. We spend a lot of time helping customers extend the Microsoft Work Management Platform, working closely with their product team to ensure our customers are receiving the most up-to-date technology and capabilities. We take a consultative approach to designing the right solutions for every team and support your organization through implementation, training, and then continued support ongoing after go live. Right, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Allison.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to get my screen set up. So hold on one second. Make sure I can see all of you. Okay, and I'm going to steal the screen, Charlene, pretty much picking up where you left off. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. The first part of this is going to be a bit slide heavy. Just wanted to quickly go through a list of how the Microsoft suite, basically, of options compares to Smartsheet. In some ways, there are advantages, obviously. In other ways, you wouldn't be losing functionality if you're already coming from a Smartsheet-based solution. And then have a couple of scenarios. One is when we had a customer approach us. They had a Smartsheet implementation, but for reasons we'll go over, they wanted to know how easy could they transition to Microsoft without having to make much more of an investment. And then I believe I have three other scenarios where it's more about kind of a simple, some moderate complex or a complex project management need. So we'll quickly review like what that might have looked like in Smartsheet versus what it looks like in Microsoft. And then, as Charlene mentioned, I'm actually going to walk through Marquee 360's enterprise level project management solution that we call PPM 360 because it showcases a little bit of everything. It showcases how we can use SharePoint and a model driven app. It shows how we can use Power Automate. It shows how we can use Microsoft Planner. It shows how we can use Microsoft Teams. So hopefully then, having seen all of that, you might be ready to make a transition. So with that, let's talk about this. Okay, so why would you want to transition from Smartsheet to, the Microsoft tools? So I'm assuming that your organization is already a Microsoft 365 subscriber. So you are already using, perhaps as part of your day-to-day, maybe it's even become part of your company culture, to use Teams, SharePoint, Outlook. And so certainly, extending your use, right? You're furthering your integration with these tools, and it's native. So yes, Smartsheet can certainly integrate with Microsoft 365 tools. We can get Smartsheet to send notifications in Teams. We can embed a Smartsheet into a team channel, but integration's more than that. There's no shared data level with that Smartsheet integration. There's no native, identity or security consistency. So again, when we start, when we have that integration with that Microsoft 365 environment, we're able to embrace a lot of the things that we have already set when it comes to, governance and security and so forth. I'm going to go down the left here and then I'll move over to the right. So Power Automate flows, right? So within the Microsoft ecosystem, we can use Power Automate to create flows. It includes advanced automation with over 1,000 connectors, and it offers conditional logic. Smartsheet does that too. It actually has some pretty advanced automation capabilities. So there, it's more like you're not going to lose anything by making that transition or selecting the Power Platform as the foundation of whatever you're looking to build. When we, start building solutions in our Microsoft ecosystem, we get to take advantage of our existing Microsoft 365 and Dynamics licensing. So in the first scenario I walk through, you're going to see that they could retire their use of Smartsheets almost fully by using basic plans in Planner. That's available to everyone in your organization that has a Microsoft 365 licensing. A lot of things, this company, they were thinking about using SharePoint. Again, you don't need any extra licensing to, craft a solution using SharePoint. When we get to things like the more sophisticated plans in Planner, we call them premium plans. Yes, you might need to make an investment, but not for everyone. So we'll talk about that. So there's definitely an opportunity to reduce costs if we're not paying 2 times for functionality that's already available in what we're paying for. The Dataverse data model. So that is at the core of the Microsoft ecosystem, basically allowing us to create, relationships between data. We can then also control access to that information, table level, row level, based on security roles. We have a means of capturing and auditing history, and we can also use business rules to control access. Smartsheet does have audit capability. I mentioned business rules here. Smartsheet does include things like if-then types of logic. Sure, we can get conditional automation and some form validations. but it doesn't have that relational database necessarily behind it. And when it comes to permissions, sure, you can do viewer, editor, admin, where in our solutions, we can actually build like a group that we might call PMO managers, and they get a certain mix of rights. And then we could have a different group called just project managers or just resource managers, and they get an entirely different set of access levels. So with that behind your solutions, you really open up a much broader range of possibilities. Power BI. So that is the reporting mechanism within the Microsoft ecosystem. So your live dashboards and reports that connect directly to this data. You do have the ability to analyze your Smartsheet data with Power BI. So again, you're not necessarily losing or gaining anything there. Data analysis and visualization is certainly possible. And then kind of tying this all together, because we're using our existing tenant, we're using that Dataverse behind the scenes. We get enterprise governance when we elect to build our solutions within the Microsoft ecosystem. We have data loss prevention policies that could be configured. We can manage environments. So when I show to you the PPM 360 app, that is an app that we actually deploy in a named space, right? It's an environment specifically created for a specific purpose, for use by specific people, and we can protect it. Smartsheet, they've got good governance, but it's not at that's like enterprise level, again, taking advantage of a lot of things that you have already configured in the context of your Microsoft tenant. Okay. So I'm going to jump into some of the, how would we or how could we replace? As I mentioned, this first scenario, it's a customer that came to us, and basically what was driving them was cost. They wanted to be able to replicate as much functionality that they were already managing with Smartsheet without additional licensing or development cost. So what they did was they gave us a list of what they were using Smartsheet to do. And then we talked about what they would be open to. They were open to using Microsoft Planner. They thought maybe for them, actually SharePoint sites and lists might be the better way to go. And then we included the Power Platform column. So anywhere where we said no, we wanted to say if they did want to plan for future phases, that some of those limitations could actually be overcome through automations or Power App development. So we'll go through these few slides pretty quickly. So obviously, they were grouping tasks into lists, right? They had action lists, they had intake lists, they had lists dedicated to projects. So that could certainly be managed in either within Planner or with SharePoint. And in the context of Planner, even just basic plans would have satisfied that need. As part of their task definition, wanting to capture, assignments and due dates. So again, yes, easy to do, no additional licensing development work required. They liked to attach files, in many cases, multiple files to specific tasks. Can't do that with basic plans, but once we affiliate or share our plans with a Microsoft 365 group that has a Microsoft team, yes, we can do that, and SharePoint lists support that as well. Wanted to be able to capture comments at the task level, so yes for all. They also used @mentions. So hopefully you're familiar with @mentions. If I @mention someone, they get a notification that, something requires their attention, pretty much prompts a conversation. They'll probably get an email notification as well. At the time of this conversation, basic plans did not support that, but in recent weeks or months, Microsoft has retired kind of the legacy version of Commons and Basic plans. And so now, whether it's a basic or premium plan that we affiliate with a Microsoft team, that app mention becomes available. So that was yes across the board. Owner update notifications. Yes, whether you're assigned a task and planner, or we can configure it that if you are, affiliated with a SharePoint list item, we can, have notifications delivered. They wanted to be able to see field level version history. You don't get that with basic plans. In premium plans, yes. I will say yes for everyone except those in government tenants. So there are a few planner capabilities that differ between those in the commercial space versus those in the public sector that might be using GCC or GCH tenants. But generally speaking, we can see the version history within premium plans and SharePoint. They were using conditional formatting on some of their columns, so we can do that. And pretty much here, you notice that basic plan starts not to be the right solution. And again, I mentioned that they were cost conscious. So even though to create a premium plan in Microsoft Planner, you do need elevated licensing. That's only for the people that want to create those plans. People that have just a regular Microsoft 365 account, when we're working in our default environment, they'll be able to see those premium plans and still do quite a bit with them. So again, it wasn't going to be tremendously expensive. Actually, still with getting rid of the Smartsheet subscription, there was going to be a huge cost savings there. They were okay thinking that, hey, maybe we'll give our PMO managers and our PM managers that elevated licensing, and then the rest of our resources can stay with just their Microsoft 365 accounts. Obviously, with SharePoint, you don't need anything special. So conditional formatting on fields, child task, parent-child task definition, yes. Adding custom columns, I mean, that's pretty much all that SharePoint lists are, but in premium plans, we can add custom columns. Task level permissions. So this is the first time where Planner does not support that, but you notice I have a little asterisk there. So later I'm going to be demoing our PPM 360 app. And as I mentioned, that's an app that we deploy in what's called a named environment, a place that is specifically stood up for specific use by a specific group. In named environments, things work a little differently, and that is the case with general Microsoft 365 account holders with our solution. So what actually proved to be a benefit with this was if they elected to use our solution, again, the project managers, PMO managers could develop very sophisticated schedules, but the users, while they can read it, the only thing they could update was how much of their task was complete and notes. So there was no risk that those team members were going to accidentally change the schedule by changing due dates or even inserting tasks that weren't planned on. So that was one of those maybes that depends on which path you take. Automations, right? So while we can't build an automation directly from the Planner UI, SharePoint does offer a way for us to build some basic automations right from the SharePoint list. But otherwise, if you need something more sophisticated or you do want to build automations that are triggered by events in a premium plan, we can do that. I think I have two more slides in this particular scenario. Task dependencies, that's a native feature of premium plans. A SharePoint list, there's a way to finagle it. It's a little clunky, so we just went with no. Managing permissions at the field level. So that is pretty much a no across the board. So once we start getting into those more specific or granular or detailed permission needs, that's when a Power App that either sits on top of data in the Dataverse, or maybe even your SharePoint list, right? Your SharePoint list is basically the repository. Then we can start to do things like that, because we can then lock areas of our field, or in the case of a Dataverse app, we can put restrictions down at the column level. This is worded oddly: replication of task details to tasks in other lists. So basically, if they had task A that relied on task B, they also wanted to see from task B, what is task B's due date? So seeing that in a single line, that's not really supported out of the box with premium plans. With SharePoint, we can create drop downs that look to other lists and then surface some areas. So it was possible there. But then again, once we get into the world of the Power Platform, you'll see with our app, you can really do quite a lot there, create inter-project dependencies. We could have even built an automation to maybe take information from one task and showcase it in another. So not native functionality, but certainly not a no, we can't support that. Dynamic dashboards, we already talked about that. So basic plans and premium plans, you have a couple of simple visualizations at the project level, but when you want to see things across your entire portfolio, premium plans, that data is in the Dataverse, and Power BI can speak to the Dataverse. So we could certainly report on premium plan information. Marquee 360 actually already put together basically a turnkey report pack. It's got about 7 reports that will read your premium plan data. SharePoint, Power BI, native connector, right? We can query a SharePoint list and report on that. And certainly anything in the Dataverse we're going to be able to report on. And then they talked about external access and third parties. So opening up external access, it can be done. It's just so long as your IT, your tenant is configured to support that. Security trimmed interactive views to those external parties. Nothing really out of the box with Planner. SharePoint, yes, we can finagle some things. So again, if we then turn to the Power Platform, with our understanding of requirements, we can probably implement something using the Power Pages, or configuring certain areas of the Power App. And their last requirement was integration with Jira. And we actually hear this a lot, right? The project managers or the PMO office, they want to have some general visibility into the status of projects, but those development teams, they're going to work the way that they work. And in this case, their teams were using Jira to manage that. So there's nothing, there's no button in Planner that allows that integration. The same with SharePoint, but there are premium connectors when it comes to the Power Platform. And so could we bring in certain aspects of Jira into a schedule on some sort of reoccurring basis or on demand with an automation? Absolutely. Could this have been as simple as, hey, we'll create teams for your projects, and for those teams, we'll add a tab that launches Jira so that everything is in a single workspace. So before I move on to more the solution-based concepts, did anyone have any questions about anything I rattled through there? We're good? Okay. So as Charlotte mentioned, we are a Microsoft partner, and our area of focus is, project management, work management. So going to highlight three scenarios as for when it comes to wanting to manage work or manage a project, and how setting that up in Smartsheet might compare to setting that up within the Power Platform. So use case, so simple. I need a shared sheet where teams can track, task status, owner, and due dates with some automated reminders. So in Smartsheet, right, you create your sheet with your columns. You could implement some conditional formatting for overdue items. Again, Smartsheet has automation, so we can create those automated alerts when the due dates are approaching. We can use a dashboard widget to show us some task counts. And then we use forms for the team members to submit new tasks or update existing tasks. With the Power Platform, as true with a lot of Microsoft things, we have many ways that we could address this. Actually, the most simple one on here, not even listed, is we could use basic plans. The only thing with the basic plan you would not get is the conditional formatting. So maybe instead you move to a premium plan, and then you have your conditional formatting available. Another option would be to use the Dataverse and a model-driven app. That's actually a pretty robust solution. That's the one I'm going to introduce to you. But what's nice about that is you can turn off what you don't need, or you don't have to develop what you don't need. The other option here is if you're thinking you don't want to use Planner, although it really excels at schedule development and task management, you certainly could use a SharePoint list, right? SharePoint list, task owner, status, due date, and then build a little Canvas app on top of that to be the form. And so that people have a pretty user-friendly experience rather than working directly with SharePoint list. Some organizations, their prior experience with SharePoint a long time ago, they don't like necessarily, or they have bad memories of what that look and feel used to be, right? But in all of these cases, we're going to use Power Automate for your reminders and alerts, except if you're using Planner out of the box. Those Planner notifications and being made aware of that in your team's activity, that's all native. If it's excessive, every user can configure, to what extent they want to receive those reminders. Power BI, right? So we can develop those. We got that report pack if we're just going to use Planner, or we can develop something much more robust depending on user needs. And as I mentioned, that Canvas model with the SharePoint list behind the scenes for task submission. We actually have a solution for timesheets that is exactly this. It has a SharePoint backend and then a Canvas app on top. Okay, so these are the equivalents sheet to either a plan. If you're using premium plan, you actually are using the Dataverse table, or you could be using a SharePoint list, columns, conditional formatting, automated alerts, your widgets, your forms, and then we didn't talk about security, but again, Planner, natively, you're going to be a bit more open. Anyone that's a member of the project team is going to be able to see that schedule. Anyone that has elevated licensing is going to be able to do quite a bit in that schedule. Those with just the Microsoft 365 user, depending where we are, they could have quite a bit of permission or pretty restricted. But if it needs to be more sophisticated than that, we can certainly do that, taking advantage of Dataverse security roles and SharePoint permissions. A use case that's a bit more complex, right? Multiple project sheets that, are cross-referencing one another, approval workflows, and resource tracking. Again, Planner is really good for schedule management and work management, but we're kind of limited when it comes to like, what else are these resources doing? Like, can we see that? So let's see, Smartsheet. We're going to set up multiple sheets. We're going to create cross-references for summary roll-ups. We're going to create workflows to manage approvals. We are going to use views in order to see resource allocation. We're going to then create different dashboards that would aggregate the data. And then we're going to do some linking between the sheets. Power Platform equivalent. So remember I mentioned we've got that relational or related data sets in between our Dataverse tables. So we can have project, tasks, issues, risks. We can have lookup columns, roll up fields for aggregations, use those Power Automations for those approvals. Those approvals can be tiered, have multiple stages. We can have places where we track our bookable resources. You're going to see this in a demo, basically setting like what is their capacity threshold, so we can then do some pretty sophisticated reporting with our Power BI dashboards. And then again, if we need any linking, we can manage that in the back end and then present the data in our forms. So here again is kind of that mapping, right? Multiple sheets are going to be Dataverse tables, cross-references, that'll be handled in the Dataverse. Workflows, we'll do that with our Power Automate flows. Resource management, we're going to take advantage of the bookable resources or other custom tables behind the scenes. Dashboards, we will build with Power BI. Connecting projects, rolling them up to portfolios, or projects and rolling them up to programs. We can do that with the ability to establish relationships between our Dataverse tables. Didn't mention this, but probably when you have these type of projects that are much more sophisticated, if any of you ever used Project Pro and you, or even once upon a time, I think SharePoint task list had that Gantt chart view. We can replicate that. Actually, premium plans, you're going to have that view. But then also with our Power BI reports, we can generate some sophisticated timeline visualizations with all sorts of slicers. And then we're going to manage permissions with that capability built into your Dataverse and Power Platform environment. Okay, and then the most sophisticated would be enterprise portfolio management. And that's what I'm going to spend a few moments just highlighting a couple elements of our solution. Right, you're going to have multiple departments, each wanting to manage their own portfolios, perhaps each of them having their own business process flow depending on project type. So, varying governance needs. They want a way to collect project requests, evaluate them, prioritize them, capture financials, right? The whole thing. You can do that certainly with a Smartsheet setup, but then we have created a pretty sophisticated Power Platform equivalent, which I will take the time now to demonstrate unless anybody has any questions before I do that. Okay, so when we talk about Microsoft's Power Platform, and you keep hearing me say Power App, what you are looking at right now is what we call a model-driven app. It is browser-based. This lives in an environment that was stood up specifically for the management of projects by a specific group. You'll see right here, these are Power BI reports that we have basically embedded on the homepage that gives us some quick visualizations regarding all of the projects in our portfolio and programs. So what we have is the ability to organize projects into portfolios. Let me see if I can find, just launch one. So we capture information about the portfolio. We can have things roll up based on the projects that make up the portfolio. And here's that one-to-many association. We can then affiliate projects with the portfolio either from this interface or when we are defining plans. The same with the ability to, group something into the context of a program. Again, we have a means of capturing that, a means of kind of tracking the status, again, doing roll-ups and calculations, tracking financials. Here is an example of what we can do with Power BI as far as visualizations. So not just within the context of a project and project task, but we can do that for, like in this case, entire programs. And then here is the list of projects. To define projects, what you are seeing here is, okay, so this is our app. So again, Planner is really good at scheduling. And so our accelerator kind of builds information around that. So we have built into this app a means of capturing some project information. If you are an outfit that, subscribes to ensuring you have a project charter, we have a place to capture that. We have a means for project managers to to generate project status reports. But here we are basically, again, wrapping this around a premium plan schedule. So for those of you not familiar with Planner, that's what we're looking at here. And I can actually launch this in Planner just to try and keep us focused a bit. So this is the Planner app. So in addition to just, schedule, what's nice is a resource can come in here and say, what is out there for me to do across all my projects? So right now I'm looking at this in a board view and I've said group by plans. And so I can see all the projects where I have work to do. Okay. But in addition to that, this is what a plan looks like in Planner. If you in the past used Project Professional and when Planner came about, you said, wait, that's way too simple for me. When Planner originally came on the scene, all they offered were basic plans. But now, you can't really see it in this view, but now we have the ability to create pretty sophisticated, this is pretty simple, but we have the ability to create sophisticated schedules where there are task dependencies, and we have this Gantt chart view. When it comes to defining task details, you will see there's quite a bit of information that we can capture. And in the event that we have other characteristics we typically capture as part of a task, remember me saying when I was going through that first scenario, we always have the ability to add our own custom columns. So in our app, the plan, the schedule is just a small portion of that. How do plans get in here? I mentioned a Canvas app and the use of SharePoint lists. We have a separate app. We call it our Intake 360 app, and it is exactly that. Behind the scenes here, this wakes up. We have many organizations that will use this app as a way of collecting ideas or needs from their organization. Again, behind the scenes, basically are a bunch of SharePoint lists. And so here is a list of, all the requests that have been made. Some of them are in a draft state. Some of them have been submitted and are pending approval, so we can have workflows as part of this. And some of them have actually already resulted in the creation of a project in our PPM 360 solution. If I were to hit new, just to show you the types of things that are capable when we develop these apps, depending on where things are in a process, we can require bits of information. So in this case, you'll see that we have things that default, right? I'm the user, request date. We can have things that are required fields. We can provide options, and we can then have automations. Hey, if I say that this is an IT project, once it becomes a project, use a particular schedule, apply a particular business process flow to the management of my project. So we can build those type of little connectors. Right. We can make sure that we have visual clues, right? That once all the required fields are completed, I get a little check mark and I know that, okay, everything at minimum I needed to complete on this tab, I did. In this case, our app, some of these fields will get passed over to the project if it were to become go live, if it was approved. So again, that demonstrates the type of capability we can build into things with automations. We do offer a means of scoring. So what this demonstrates is some on-screen calculations as we work through things. This sample, it's just straight math, but we've had customers elect to do some pretty sophisticated weighted calculations, right? And then once all of that's done, they have the ability to submit it, kicks off a bunch of workflows and things of like that nature. So behind the scenes, that's SharePoint, no additional cost. It's a Power App. No need to license everyone in the organization to use this. Usually it's just a service account that needs to have Power App licensing, and then it offers enough of the functionality where no other additional licensing is required. So that's how things would come into this particular place. So remember when I was doing plan, start, and finish, we have some things that can carry over. That one customer mentioned wanting to be able to relate basically tasks in one project to tasks in another. This is a new piece of functionality within our solution. Let's see, this inner project dependency, because we were hearing a request for it quite often, and I'm just trying to be proactive and have this already. There we go. So here's a project called Contract ABC. And think of that almost like a program, right? Or like, the master project, contract ABC. I'm going to have a lot of other little projects that all roll up to this. So we can go to inter-project dependencies and we can say, I'd like to create a new dependency. And so my upstream project is where I'm at. And maybe, what task am I going to be relating with another? So maybe it's contract deliverable 1. And then I go and I find my downstream project. And I'll just pick, doesn't really matter. And then you can pick your downstream task, but I did not pick one that has a. So you would pick your downstream and your task, and then we have a choice of hard link or soft link. A soft link, you're just going to get a quick snapshot of what the task was when you set up those dependencies, and so it will not change in your view. A hard link, as those downstream task dates change, it's going to change here as well. And this is not the only place where we see, what are the dependencies. But if I go into the task schedule itself, you're going to see the tasks that are downstream. Now, we don't create any dependencies out of, when that's set up, because that's really for the project manager to manage. But if they want tasks to impact the overall schedule, then we can use native planner functionality to go ahead and create those dependencies. So this was a place where, whether it was Smartsheet or other solutions, that sometimes there was hesitation because there wasn't support for this. You don't get it with Native Planner, but with this app that we've developed called PPM 360, it now is an option. Other things that we are able to track in our app, baseline. So in Native Planner, which you may be considering, you do have the ability to capture a baseline, but you can only ever have one baseline. So let's say you create a baseline at the end of the project, 4 weeks from now, a lot of things have shifted. If you want to kind of capture that and see where we are now, unfortunately, you have to delete this one and start again. Seeing that as a limitation, we have built into this solution, again, Power Apps, Power Automate, the ability to go ahead and create multiple baselines by simply saying, yes, we want to create one, save and close. In a little while, a workflow runs and we can start to see our collection and then navigate between them. We also have a means for your project managers to capture risks, issues, changes, and decisions, right? That's all things that we don't get with, for example, the planner utility out of the box. Now, in that last scenario, complex, I think I surfaced resource management. Again, when we are looking at just a schedule itself, again, I'm looking at Planner. I could again be looking at here. Let's see what we have. So we have this grid view of our tasks. Let me just go ahead and assign a couple people. Notice that this says everyone else. Right now, Charlene's not a member of my project team. So when I pick her, it's going to be asked, do you want to add her to the project team? So she's aware of the project and can see the schedule and know her assignments. And yes, I absolutely want to. If this was me just more kind of tracking independent, like Charlene doesn't come in here, but she's doing something for me over in design, and I'm just waiting for her to let me know it's done, I could have done just assign. Let's just get a couple of task assignments here just to help us with some of the views. All right, so we have our grid view. We have our board view. You can create your own buckets. Premium plans have a couple of default boards built in. We already looked at this Gantt chart view that we like when it comes to inside projects. And then remember, in our app, we have that available in our programs interface, right? When I was in here, we have a timeline view. Another place we have a timeline view is when I'm looking at my whole list of projects. We have an all plans timeline view here. So again, now we're expanding the visibility just outside of Planner. So just wanted to take a moment while we're talking about timelines. In Planner, you have these simple little visualizations just to give you an idea of what is going on in your project. If you elect to only use Planner, sorry about that, and you have that elevated licensing, more than a Microsoft 365 account, you can create portfolios. Basically, you create a portfolio, you pick some of your premium plans and put them in the portfolio. You can share this with others, but what they can see depends on if they have the licensing. Real quickly, then I can see, this collection, where are they? When did they start? When are they expected to finish? What is their overall status? And I can build a roadmap, add a couple key dates. It's pretty limited. Um, so if I want to see more than what a portfolio view offers in Planner, or more than what I can see on this, and I really want to see across the collection, that's when we get into the Power BI reports. So PPM 360, when we do this deployment of our app, depending on what flavor, you can get as many as 15 pre-made reports that allow you to, for example, this request dashboard that is tied to that intake app I showed you, so basically here we're using SharePoint lists as the data source. These other ones, such as portfolio health, the portfolio dashboard, the portfolio timeline, this is reading information from our app because that's all stored in the Dataverse. And you can see then we have the ability to, hey, I just want to see it for a particular program. I want to look at projects that are owned by just one particular project manager. The task overview one, is it the task overview one? Yes, this one's actually reading planner data. So you can see that through this report pack, we are tapping into quite a bit, right? And that is much more than what I can see within Planner alone. As a project manager trying to get work done, I can see how the work is distributed across my project team. I can create goals for each project. So, if the point of a project is to get A, B, and C done, we can then, have those listed here, and then also show how our tasks specifically are aimed at achieving that goal. And then there's the assignments view. So again, this is great in the context of my project. I can see that, Allison's got tasks and Charlene's got tasks. I can even see how the tasks, like if I have two people on a task, and how the work is distributed across them, and if I wanted to balance that a different way. But I really have no idea. Is Allison on any other projects? I don't know. Is Charlene on any other projects? I don't know. So that's why when we start to think about developing robust solutions in the Power Platform ecosystem, well, now we can do things like manage resources as a collection. And for those resources, we can set things like, what is their capacity? How much of their time should they be engaged in projects? What's our goal with that? So in this case, I'm supposed to spend 50% of my time doing project work. The other 50% of the time, maybe I'm doing marketing. And when anyone affiliates me as part of their project team, they should assume I'm going to be able to commit 25% of my time, because usually I'm balancing two projects. So this is kind of like a system setting. It can get even more sophisticated where I actually specify what are even my work hours. And all of that is used so that a resource manager could come in here and just kind of keep a list of what is my availability going to be every month. In June, maybe I'm working a summer schedule, so I'm not as available. But then come September, come October, November, I'm 100% of my time. I can start dedicating work. And this is used by reporting. So what happens is when we are project manager, oops, wrong one. And we are building our team. Who's going to be working on this project, right? We're in the initiation planning phase. I'm building my project team. I will start to add them and I need them, you know what? I actually need them more than 25% of their time in August. That's really when things are going to be picking up. I'm going to need more out of them then. And with all of this information all being captured in that dataverse, I can then go to our reports and I can go to this resource availability report and I can quickly see a lot of red because this is bad data, but I can quickly see, for example, how much time are people over allocated or under allocated. So I'll just pick on Topeka. So in the month of January in 2025, it looks like Topeka is 60 plus 25. Topeka is supposed to be spending 85% of her time on project work. So in January, she could have taken on a little bit more. And in this case, who is over allocated? In this case, Jason was over allocated. So this was an opportunity. And I can tell because he's red and in the negative. I could have potentially offloaded some of Jason's work and given it. So this is to help with seeing what's going on and then, balancing things better. We actually have, so you notice I had to jump a couple places to do that, right? I went and was managing their engagement. The project managers, the resource managers are managing their availability. We heard like, I have to go check, I got to go to this report to see like, how are things going? So we have actually just launched a new engagement management utility. So again, the beauty of developing things in this Power Platform, where here I can come in, I can set, we found that a lot of organizations were planning week to week rather than monthly. So we can come in here, we can set week availability, and let's find a place where there's a little more color. And then as they get assigned to projects, I can see, what is their capacity or how much time do they have left and what is the engagement. Same thing for the project managers. We took this control and in that resources tab, we replace that engagement grid with this. And so now the project managers can very easily see like, hey, I need Allison here, but she's obviously, she's got other things going on. What else does she have going on? So we try to condense all that. But again, that's the type of thing we can do when we're building solutions in the Power Platform. So with that, I'm going to pause and see, does anyone have any questions about, I'm doing this in Smartsheet. Could I do it in any of these tools? We didn't even get to Teams, Teams, Planner, SharePoint. Okay. Well then, Charlene, would you like to drop in the chat? So again, these are all the types of things we were demonstrating with that Power App. Again, there was a lot you could have done with just SharePoint or just Planner. So I guess, in summary, there's a lot you can do with what you already have in your Microsoft ecosystem. And so possibly you have the opportunity to save costs by not having to invest in a Smartsheet subscription. These are all the things that you gain, right? The relation, the security, the scalability, the analytics, how we can extend it. That last one was an example of this, custom control. And again, it's that single ecosystem. You saw me jump to Planner right from that app. You heard me tell you SharePoint's behind this. We didn't talk about it, but we also integrate Teams with, you can have Teams and Planner and that's it. Or you can have a more sophisticated application also as part of that integration. So if you are either interested in moving away from Smartsheet, or you thought, oh, we thought we were going to be investing in Smartsheet, but maybe we should be looking at what we have. This is our recommendation when it comes to how to approach that, right? Facilitate a discovery, an assessment, model your design. Once that's taken care of, you're going to build and configure, or it could just be a matter of like developing, use cases and guidance in the form of training and supporting, that change and adoption, and then hopefully going live with your new solution. So thank you for hanging in there with me. I see I brought it right to the end of the hour. We'd really appreciate it if you would fill out a survey, let us know if this met your expectations, and if you'd like to have conversation about specifically what you're trying to do, reach out to Charlene, visit our website, shoot us an email. We'd love to learn more and perhaps assist you with your effort.